2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. We are again once more. We are on a different day here on Monday, so hopefully those who used to watch will continue to watch us. But we are going to be continuing to celebrate 5 years of being online by continuing with choices brought to us by my lovely fiance Tammy. So Tammy, what film, or actually it's a miniseries, did you bring us today?
I brought you Rose Red, which is a 2002, basically a mini series. It was directed by Craig Baxley, and Stephen King also did help with the writing credits. From what I understand, I've read many things about it that Stephen King really did enjoy helping work on this, and it was one of his favorite projects. Things haven't always gone that way for him, so when you know that he's really excited about something, that's a good thing. We have a pretty good cast of Nancy Travis is Joyce Reardon. For the main people, Matt Kiesler is Stephen Rimbauer, and Annie, who we will be discussing later.
Let's not forget Stephen King as the delivery driver.
Is what?
Stephen King is the delivery driver.
Oh, yes.
That was in the
fun little cameo.
That's in the phase where he wanted to be Alfred Hitchcock and do a cameo in all of his films.
I was thinking more like the fuck's the name from Marvel, Stan Lee. But I suppose that was Hitchcock too.
Yeah, definitely more like Stanley. Hitchcock just showed up. He never really said anything.
Well, yeah, that's been a thing though of Stephen King. Is, he usually does show up in all of them for doing some stupid little part, which in this one he was the pizza delivery. So, but anyways, I guess we can go into, because this is a long one, we should probably get going as to what's everybody's first time watching. Let's start with Kroll. Was it your first time?
It is. I hadn't heard of this one, but I love Stephen King, so I was definitely interested. Now, I would actually like to see a movie about them actually making the house and living there, and like a timepiece movie. This was fun and interesting, but it made me really want to see the story unfold. You get bits and pieces of it, but and to me, I think that would have been more of Stephen King's wheelhouse. To do it that way than this, but this was still good. I liked it. Reminded me of House on Haunted Hill. The cast was good. I liked everybody except for the guy with the glasses. I wanted him to die. Unfortunately, Julian Sands, of course, was great. And where the fuck did Pam go? It's like she was there 1 second, and then she was gone. I'm like, where the fuck did she go? Like, she was alive, and then she was a ghost, and then she was like alive again, and then she's like a ghost, and it's very confusing. And if you don't know, she played Bones later. I absolutely love the actress. Great on Bones. But yeah, she just kind of disappeared, and Julian Sands kind of got killed because the Christian lady walked him out of the door, out of the closet. So much for a Christian. Anyways, yeah, I love how the house. Well, he didn't trick the mother into coming, but tricked the other doctor into coming to the house. So it's like, the more people he feeds on, the bigger it can get and grows. And it's crazy idea, but it's really cool. So I like it, and the house is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I read about the real castle that they used in Seattle, and yeah, you can actually go there and stay in those rooms during the movie and stuff.
Oh yeah, I
it was
made sure
fun.
I looked that up too. When
Yeah,
of course, in 2002 things weren't as readily available as they are now. So in the later years, I've looked that up about the house, and found out, yeah, there was a house they used, but there wasn't actually anything wrong with the house, It was
yeah,
just a house that they used for things.
yeah. I'd like to hear more about the real Red Rose. Did they actually tear it down like they said they were going to in the movie and stuff? And yeah, because this is loosely based on a true story. So
the Winchester Mansion, which King originally wanted to film at, but the location was too tight, so he instead made it up as he went along. But Kroll, you're in luck. There is a film that does get past. It's The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer.
okay.
Yeah, I watched that also in prep. But yeah, it goes all the way up to, I believe, the movie star's disappearance.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, the death of that dude, whatever his name.
Yeah,
is.
and the only character that still remains the same in Rose Red is Sukina's character.
Yeah.
To be honest,
She was
Right.
That
particular movie.
That actress had a particular look that was hard to replicate.
Yeah, she was creepy.
I liked her.
She looked like a voodoo priestess.
Is that all you get? All then, Crow?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, Jake.
Yeah. Sorry, I was on another screen and I was muted, so it took a minute. So I am not sure that I saw this when it aired. I think Brandon showed it to me. I'm almost sure he showed it to me. I don't think I saw it when it aired. But this was not a first viewing. I think it was a second viewing. Like I said, and it's been a minute. I couldn't say how long, but it's definitely been a minute since I've seen it. So as it went along, I didn't feel like it was completely new. Like there was definitely a much stronger sense of familiarity than with last week's viewing, even though All Dogs Go to Heaven was like this nostalgic, huge piece of my childhood. My actual memory of the movie was like so deep in the past that this one was definitely fresher in mind. Even so, it was still kind of like a first watch in a sense. The one thing that really sucked about this viewing is, as I mentioned beforehand, my computer's a piece of shite. It cut down on me yesterday in the middle of me doing something, and I have not been able to restart it. So I had to watch this 4-hour movie on my phone. And that was less than thrilling. But
you weren't able to get it on a streaming channel or anything?
I didn't have access to that. I didn't have that option to sit and watch a 4-hour movie on a television. It was not a thing. So yes, this was it's a testament to the movie that it kept my attention pretty well, and I still enjoyed it. I think I would have enjoyed it more under other circumstances, but
Yeah, more like
it
a
definitely,
42-inch screen or something instead of a
yeah,
little.
exactly. This is
I watched it
definitely.
on my computer screen.
I feel like this is a show, a movie. It is essentially a movie. I think it is one that is better. I mean, because it's such a huge house. It, even though in a sense being a haunted house thing, this sense of like claustrophobia and that kind of stuff might be improved even on a small screen. The the grandeur of certain shots and whatever would be impressive on a bigger screen. So one day I'll get another chance to do that, I'm sure. And I know Brandon's been hawking this Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, which I really don't think I have seen because I can't remember if he showed it to me the first time, and I didn't have time this time. And I know that this was also kind of sort of an adaptation of The Haunting. King has been very vocal that he's a huge fan of the novel that was based on, but they had just done a remake, and he wanted some of that flavor, but also wanted to go in a different direction, I guess, from what I understand. So there's some elements of that there, which I guess added to the familiarity a little bit.
Well, he said in
Um,
a quote that or they said that this was his best screenplay to screen only that he's done.
right,
This was not one of his novels turned into
right,
a movie.
right. Well, he's only had, how many of those has he had? I mean, I know this followed Storm of the Century,
I know.
which
Correct.
I did see when it aired. I did see that. It was a big
That
deal. It
was
was like,
a screenplay.
what's that?
Which that was a screenplay turned into a movie,
Right,
miniseries as well.
right,
Well,
right,
this one
right.
had a whole lot of hype.
And what's
Well, yeah,
funny is there are elements of Storm of the Century in here where the little girl is singing, "I'm a little teacup,
right.
short and stout. Here
There,
is my candle, here is my spout."
there are a lot of elements in here from other Stephen King works. I think one thing that I've seen repeatedly is that there are references to Annie. I mean, Annie is a lot of references to in her to Carrie. There's a lot of references. There's like at least some oblique references to The Shining and It and some other stuff. So there's a lot of references to other Stephen King works in here, which is kind of fun. It's kind of like a little Easter egg hunt at
But
times.
it isn't
Uh,
done in Maine.
what's that?
I said it wasn't done in Maine where most
Well,
of the stuff is.
and
Right? No.
the house is hungry, as was the
Right?
Stanley Hotel.
Exactly. Yeah. Or they overlook the. But the Annie here is a little different from the Annie in Misery. Just a
Okay.
little different. Although I don't know, Emery's mother reminded me a little bit of a potential Annie Wilkes type.
Yeah, you definitely can
But,
say that.
I'll always be
but
there for you. I'm your mother.
Mommy's little scooter bout.
right.
Scooter
But
boat to
anyway,
ice cream. Scooter boat to the store.
but one of the things that this thing for me, it does have a lot of the elements that I really love in Stephen King's writing. It has uh, a nice creepy vibe to it. It does focus more on the atmosphere and the mystery and the creepiness and not so much on gore and shock value, although King does do that, and sometimes he will insert very shocking stuff into his books, he doesn't lean into it the way a lot of people do. Like he works more on the whole package, if you will, and
Use
a
your
big
imagination. You know
yes,
that
and a big
this is
yeah,
happening, and then it goes to the next scene, and you're like, it's like, okay, you know what happened. You didn't have to see, you know.
right. And a big part of it, of course, is the character development, which I think that, the characters are pretty cool in this one. Not all of them are likable, but they're mostly pretty well thought out. And one thing that weird little bit of synchronicity. A few days ago, I was doing some work at the library that required me to look into some episodes of Elementary, which is the school a show I still
I
haven't
love that
seen.
show.
Well, I've been meaning to watch it, but I ended up, if I am not much mistaken, I know that Julian Sands crossed my radar not a week ago, and I do believe it was his episode of Elementary that was how I was like, oh yeah, that dude, I just saw him in something.
I didn't realize he was in that. I immediately think of the Warlock when I see him.
But
When
yeah,
I think of
he's
him,
pretty cool.
I think he was in The Serpent and the Rainbow.
He was.
So
Yeah.
He's a great actor. I love Julian Sands.
Of course, there's a few people in here that I've seen in other things. I agree. Emily Deschanel, she looked familiar, but I didn't place
I look
the
it up
picture
because
first.
I'm like, what do I know
Yeah.
her from? And I was like, oh, of course, Bones.
And then Matt Kiesler, I've seen in a few things, although
And
he
of course,
really
I recognize Rose from
he
Two and a
looks
Half Men.
remarkably like Kevin Bacon, I think. But
Doesn't he? I mean, I
He's
looked him up because I'm like, I swear I know him. I know I've seen him in
he
stuff,
was
but
in Frank
he's just got that
Herbert's
face.
Dune on the Sci-Fi
right.
channel
Well,
as
he was in Scream 3, and he was in Waiting for Guffman. He's been in a few good things. So yeah, overall, and the main the psycho who got them all into it, the professor.
I love her. She's a great actress.
She I actually knew at the time she was starring on Becker, which was a show I very much enjoyed.
I never really
So
watched that, but yeah.
that was good times.
I
But
liked her and I Married Her Next Murderer with Mike Myers.
yeah, right. And of course, a recent stint in Tim Allen's Last Man Standing. There's been a few notable roles for some of these people. So basically, the long story short is, I had a lot to catch my attention, a lot to get into with this one. I've said before, I prefer haunting type movies over certain other horror subgenres. I very much enjoy them as a general rule. I will admit the film kind of loses itself at the end. It gets a little wonky at the end. It's not one of the stronger King endings I've seen. And yes, there were a couple.
Well, they didn't all die, so that's not normal for King.
Well, it depends on the project.
I think King has a happy ending of some sort. Well, happy-ish.
Yeah, I mean, he usually has some survivors. It's actually kind of rare that there are no survivors. But,
well, yeah, but I mean, more survived this time than normal.
Well, one could say that.
Sounds like I had 2, but they were still being chased by vampires and stuff. So
right. No, I still haven't seen that one. One day. No, I haven't.
Dude. Oh my god!
Well,
October, we're gonna watch that.
Nah, I think we there's a lot of stuff we've barely scratched the surface actually on this channel with Stephen King stuff. We really do need to do more generally.
Light is my favorite.
But
favorite.
Right.
He's my favorite too.
But at any rate, I need to see it just because it factors so heavily into Dark Tower. So I've seen some of the characters from it.
I love Dark Towers.
But at any rate, yeah, it was a good fun watch. I thought it would. It doesn't feel long. It does not feel like a 4-hour movie, except when you're watching it on your phone. Then you kind of notice the length a little bit. but overall, yeah, it was a good one. I'm glad I got to revisit and look forward to hopefully. Who knows? Maybe one day down the road we'll get to some of those other mini series. I've got
Yeah, we'll have to
unwatched.
do the Stan miniseries. You know,
I do not
just
have Rose
because.
Red in the. I do not have Rose Red in the collection, sadly. But I do have the Stand, the Shining, and Storm of the Century. So
The original Stand, right?
Oh yeah. Although I found there is a 2-pack with both versions. I kind of want to get that.
The only thing I liked about the new version was the devil. I liked him as the devil. You know, he was a great vampire and then as the devil. But other than that, the original was so much better.
Well, the original did have one great improvement over the novel, which is just one little thing, but that's when Randall Flagg meets, I think it's Harold, and he introduces himself with the opening from Sympathy for the Devil.
Oh, nice.
You know, it's nice to meet. Good to meet you. Hope you know my name, or whatever the line
Yeah.
is. I'm like, I
Yeah,
love
pleased
that
to meet
they
you.
did
Hope you
that.
know my name.
Right.
Okay then. How about we move on to Forrest?
Yes, this was my first time watching Rose Red. Yeah, essentially there was there was a time back in the 90s and the early aughts where it seems like at least once a year ABC would have some kind of Stephen King miniseries like this, The Langoliers, Tommy Knockers. I think this was one of the last ones, wasn't it?
One of them, because I believe Kingdom Hospital came out like sometime after that. Nightmares and Dreamscapes was another series that came out somewhere around that time, and of course Storm of the Century, which was like all in that general vicinity,
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But
go ahead.
yeah, I think as far as Stephen King miniseries, I mean, a lot of those Stephen King miniseries that ABC did back then a lot of them were pretty cheesy. But this one, I didn't watch it when it first aired, but I just watched it for the first time today. It's but I gotta say the cast of this movie is stacked. I mean, Nancy Travis, Melanie Linsky, Kimberly J. Brown, Julian Sands, Emily Deschanel. A lot of faces I recognize, and of course Stephen King's cameo as the pizza delivery guy.
I can't believe I didn't mention Melanie Linsky. She is one of my favorites, and I did love seeing her in this one.
Yeah. And then
That's Rose, right?
she was the sister she was Rachel.
Yeah, that's that Rose.
Yeah.
In 2.5 Men, she's Rose.
Oh, okay. I never saw that show. But
Really?
She has an amusing role in that one.
But
she plays a rich nuts girl.
Yep.
It's infatuated with Charlie.
Ah.
It's great. She's such a great role.
I remember her from Heavenly Creatures. I would say, I mainly knew her from Heavenly Creatures and Detroit Rock City.
Yeah, we have to do Heavenly Creatures one of these days. The movie is basically put her, Kate Winslet, and Peter Jackson on the map in a sense.
Really?
But I gotta say the cast for this movie was very stacked. There's some good, and there's some decent. I mean, yeah, it's a little cheesy at times, but there's some decent decent scares. And some pretty decent production value. The house, they're pretty.
The house was pretty cool.
Yeah, the house is pretty cool. Yeah,
house is gorgeous.
Although it's portrayal, although I did find its portrayal of autism autism kind of pretty, for lack of a better word, cringy.
Well, Stephen King likes to do that when it comes to special, like just
Yeah.
disabilities or autism spectrum.
Yeah.
Like to have that one individual who has a special power, but
Yeah, I mean, I should admit, because I'm on the spectrum myself, so I guess maybe I'm just very critical of how it's portrayed in popular culture.
It did strike me as a less than realistic portrayal. I will admit that.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
Um,
I'm a witch, so imagine how I feel.
And also, I did find that interesting that this was an original this was an original piece for the media for the as far as Stephen King miniseries. This was an original piece. This was an original rather than adaptation of one of his books.
Yeah, I found that very interesting too. When they first were promoting this, and I mean they really promoted this. Like I remember that. I was right away looking for the book and realized,
Yeah.
not a book.
What do you mean there's no book?
Well-
It's Stephen King.
well, much like with Storm of the Century, they had companion pieces. Like they had the Diary of Ellen Rimbauer book,
Right.
that
Right.
they dug up and published.
Which was actually originally written by Ridley Pearson,
Scott?
I think.
Oh.
Which was penmanshiped as Nancy Travis his character,
huh.
because they spoofed that Nancy Reardon had actually written the Diary of Ellen Rimbauer.
Hmm.
Found the manuscript somewhere.
She never did answer the question. Would he
Which-
still be in bed with her if he
that
didn't own the
special
house?
that special that you put in there was actually a marketing piece that was put out way before Rose Red. So
2 weeks.
they spoofed that they were actually going to go that they went with these historians and that this history of this house was actually in fact real, and they were doing an actual investigation into the House of Rose Red, and that's that special that.
And they were planning on and they had they were going to have Stephen King do an interpretation of what that investigation would come up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Brandon, why don't you? Was this a first time watch for you?
No. I saw this originally when it came out. I wasn't into Stephen King when I was younger, but when I was in late high school, a friend of mine introduced me to the Dark Tower books, which was my
Love
gateway
those.
to King, because those led directly to The Stand, and then that led to other things. So I remember being like really excited both when this and Storm of the Century came out. So I remember watching that. I remember watching Unlocking Rose Red, and I had thought that I had fallen right into it because I didn't realize it was fake until a little bit later myself. Because that special made it look like it. I mean, they even hired different actors to portray the characters for that.
Yeah, it really felt real.
So, I mean, to me, I always look at that and say that special is a great way to introduce yourself to it if you've never seen it, just because it's fun that way. And then I even got, like I said, the Diary of Ellen Rimbauer because it was big in the time, but not a great movie, but it's a nice little supplemental piece. I really loved it when I watched it. It was kind of hard when you get to watch one part, then you have to wait a week. But there were large parts. And sadly, for the first two parts, not a ton goes on, just little bits. But the last two parts, stuffed full of deaths and spectral craziness going on. But that's how King is. King starts slow. He defines the characters in the world, and then all hell breaks loose. And
I mean, it's like over an hour before we even got to the house, right?
that's the idea, is that you're supposed to get to know the characters.
Yeah.
And then by the time something happens to the characters, you end up caring for them more, which is, I think, one of the things that and
that one that you wish would die and just won't.
Well, I've actually gotten to feel for Emery as time goes on.
Oh,
I didn't like him at first,
I
but
can't stand that
when I
character.
look at him, I kind of feel that he's a tragic character
He is a tragic character, definitely.
that in a lot of ways is almost as powerful as not Steve, the other guy, the British guy.
I love how he just shuts him down every time.
Yeah.
You know?
Because if you look at it all the way through, as it goes on, he comes to almost all the same conclusions, and it makes you wonder how he would have turned out had he been said, I don't know, raised by less of a psycho.
Right.
Right.
I'm sure his mother did not help his conditions at all.
But I did like, I have liked this every time I've watched it, and I've watched it many times. Had to get the DVD when it released, and I was super glad that it came with a bunch of special features. So
Nice.
At the end of it all, it's still one of my favorite Stephen King pieces. I actually like it better than Storm of the Century, even though I think Storm of the Century is creepier. I can sit down and watch this easier because I love haunted house stories.
Stephen King's movies always are long too, because Salem's Lot was a miniseries that was almost 4 hours too. Salem's Lot is my favorite. Then probably I'd say The Stand, Pet Cemetery, of course Cujo, Carrie. He just has so many fucking bangers.
Troubles.
It's not a favorite.
The funny thing is, if you watch the 2 movies of it, they're longer than the miniseries.
Yeah.
Yeah. The original was definitely better, but neither was scary.
The book was over 1,100 pages.
Yeah, it's a big book.
I remember reading The Stand and just finishing, and then King comes up with the extended version. I'm like, fuck off. It was another 400 pages.
Well,
I was so mad.
That was all because the fucking editors would
I know
his
why.
book the right way.
I know why. I'm just saying. I just finished the 800 page version, and boom, there's a 1,200 page version. I was just like, fuck off.
Yeah, that's my first impression as far as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I love Stephen King, but goddamn it, just finished.
Okay, David, what about you?
Well, I watched it when it was on, and I remember having to wait for each part because they would do when it first came out. They would do 2 episodes 1 week, and then two episodes the following week, and you'd have to wait. And I also remember actually watching the Unlocking the thing, Unlocking Rose Red thing. But I also knew most of the Easter eggs that were coming along with Rose Red too, because I was an avid Stephen King reader and lover myself. And I give King a lot of credit for bringing this adaptation of a teleplay of his. And I'm pretty sure that he had a huge hand in putting this together, even though there was a director and an editor and all that jazz that went together. And like you guys have said, this is a stocked cast. I mean, every time I watch this, it is a enjoyable experience. He gets the creep mode just right. I see, Forrest, you said that that parts of it were corny. To me, this is exactly what I want in a horror movie. So to me, it wasn't corny at all. This is how they should bring it. So
I think it's just because it's made for television. It's on network. It's on network television. So there's it's.
I'll tell you,
they're limited in the visuals, right?
Yeah. The effects in here were better than the effects in the remake of The Shining.
I think so.
I
Yeah.
do like to think that it's kind of funny, Forrest. No offense, but you love trauma. You do trauma movies, and you call this corny.
Well, although with something like Trauma or Full Moon, it kind of it comes with the territory. Whereas you're on ABC, it's on a major network. Granted, this was 20 years ago, so but different mediums,
Right.
different mediums, different like studios, a bigger different expectations.
This was still in the time where there was a clear divide between television and movies.
Right.
Like now, the line is so blurred, it's insane. But it's like here, it was a little more. Although, yeah, Dave,
Yeah,
as you
you
said,
see tell when there was a TV movie and a theater movie,
I feel like this one though. I think Dave, I think you're right that Stephen King definitely had a lot more to do with this movie than most of his earlier, like The Shining. I remember when that came out, and I remember that he was very vocal that he had hated the Kubrick version,
Right.
but he showed up in the TV version as a sort of stamp of approval of this version, and his presence and influence has grown since then in the film industry. Like I remember, I think I mentioned to you guys that when I saw Misery, I found a quote or a comment of his that he had cast. He had picked Rob Reiner to direct because Stand By Me was his only adaptation that didn't suck. and then of course, but here it's interesting, he was going to work with Steven Spielberg and they split over creative differences, and it makes you wonder, like, what would what would look like a Stephen King Spielberg collaboration? What would that look like?
No, he didn't.
What's that?
He didn't work with him on this one.
No, they were going to.
But I noticed that
split.
Mike Flanagan worked with Steven Spielberg recently on the Haunting of Hill House and the Haunting of Bly House, which Tammy and I have been watching recently. And Mike Flanagan, he's done a couple of the Stephen King adaptations lately too. With Dr. Sleep, and before that he did.
I'm going to see that.
He did a couple for Netflix, which were decent adaptations, I thought.
Yeah, I think if this was done today, it would be a Netflix series.
No doubt.
It would definitely be higher budget, but it would probably be just as corny because it's Stephen King. At the end of the day, it does have a little bit of a corny factor to it. Not as much as a low budget B horror, but that's Stephen King. That's how it is.
He has that very dark gallows humor that sometimes is a little bit corny. And again, his shameless references to his earlier work, there is a little bit there, just a nudge that, like, this isn't 100% serious.
I think the reason why I like this is because it's an interesting animal. It's like it's got mixes of the Winchester House mixed with like the like the Overlook Hotel with like humor from some of his stuff over time, and it's like an interesting mix of all the different influences that he's had, and it makes for a good viewing. So that is pretty much my first impressions. But I remember owning the 2-tape thing that it used to be on, and then later actually picking up the DVD. So
Okay, well,
it's cool.
It's
But
definitely
anyway,
not my first time. I remember all the hype for this coming out on TV. And I remember I was working, so I taped it all, and I was so tempted to watch it, and I was like, no, because I'm gonna if I watch what I taped, then I'm gonna have to sit here and wait for the rest. So I sat there and I waited till I got it all on tape and then watched the whole thing because I didn't want to be sitting there waiting to see what was gonna happen. So, and I just never told everybody, don't talk to me about it. Because I did not want to anticipate or be like, oh no, what's going to happen? No. So, because I knew how they were splitting it up, and it's like, not this time. I ain't gonna fall into that one. I'll wait. I was very, very interested when I first saw everything about it because I've always been a very big Stephen King fan. Um, so like I said, when it first came out, yeah, I thought I had missed the book, and I went, "Where's the book? Where's the book?" I found out, oh, there's no book. And I guess I was very intrigued by all of their hype about. It really did make it seem like it was real. It was a real place, and it really made you wonder. So, I mean, yeah, I found out not long afterwards that no, it really wasn't real, but it was like, man, if it was real, I would love to have gone there and checked it out. But yeah, I think like everybody else has already said,
This is based. Not to interrupt you, but this is based on a true story. There really was a rose red house.
no.
Yeah, look it up.
The
'Cause I did.
original basis was the Winchester house.
I don't know anything about a Winchester house.
The Winchester house is because that's the whole keep building, except instead of you need to keep building to appease all the people that died from the guns that you had, it was if you keep building, you'll live forever with Rose Red. And look it up. The Winchester Mansion is freaking insane. It's just it's so compact that filming inside that location would be it wouldn't work.
yeah, actually, it's based a lot on Winchester, but there really was not any Rose Red. I have looked it up. I've done lots of research on it. That's how I found out which house they were using for certain parts of the movie because I was really intense on trying to find out more about it. But it's not the real house.
That thing was bigger than if it was a real house, it would have been bigger than most English manor houses.
Yeah, it's good size.
And it looked like they actually destroyed the fuck out of this thing, anyways. Towards the end, I mean, with all the damage that the stones did.
It's only
Well, during the movie, they say you don't know how big it is. It does. You got plans
Right.
after plans after plans, and you can go down this hallway today and try to go down that same
Yeah.
hallway a week later, and it's not there.
This is the house that never ends.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
I mean, there's one
It
part
is
in
based
the
on the
movie,
Winchester Mansion.
right? There's that one part of the movie, and um, the
Stephen
hallway
Rinbauer.
changes. The hallway changes 3 times. If you look at it, it
Yep.
actually changes 3 times within like a 5-minute span. In the movie. So yeah, this had like everything I would have expected from Stephen King. It's got to be like one of my top 5 movies ever because we actually watched it not that long ago, and then when this came up for me to pick, and I knew Brandon that you really liked it and you'd been wanting to do it, and I'm like, well, and I looked at Dave and I said, "Do you mind watching it again?" And he's like, "Nope." I said, "Okay, let's go." So, but other than that, I think everybody has said their first impressions. We should get going on what it's all about.
Yep.
So you have this Professor Joyce that wants to do a study in rose red because she believes it's a dead cell. Now she teaches a class on
What does she?
I was going
I
to
think
say she doesn't. She wants everybody else to believe
She
it's
believes
dead
it's
cell.
soul. She wants to wake it up. She wants everybody else to believe that it's dead.
right.
So
She wants
pretty,
everybody else to believe actually that it's a dead cell.
Yeah.
That's what she's promoting, that it's a dead cell. But in her mind, she wants to wake this
I think
dead
you
cell up.
knew that too. Even going in, he definitely seemed to know what was going on more than anybody else.
Well, then in her class, she even says, that some houses are just made bad.
Right.
I keep thinking about the House on Haunted Hill remake, where the guy is like, it doesn't get happy, doesn't get sad, doesn't have feelings. It's a house, it's a fucking house, basically. I love that. That just that movie is there.
Well, that's probably how some of these people at first were thinking when they first went to this, that, but, and each person that was brought, they all had their own unique abilities. But Joyce, I think, realized that the main person who was going to wake Red up was going to be Annie.
And I also like the fact that there was an unknown psychic amongst them too, which ultimately ended up being Stephen Rinbauer. Later on.
Well, she knew it.
No, she didn't. She actually said he doesn't have a psychic bone in his body.
Well, I think that she was saying that to mislead the rest, because much like, say, even The Haunting is a good example. The person who runs it knows a heck of a lot more than they're willing to let anybody else know, because they have an aim, and she's almost cartoonishly evil in parts of this.
I'm not sure that I'm not sure that she really necessarily knew.
Very gleeful when fighting with each other.
I'm not sure she necessarily knew that Stephen was psychic potentially, but I think she knew that he had a definite connection to the house, and that his presence there would be important.
Yep.
Because he's the last.
Realize how important that he was. But it was Nick who figured that out later, and I think that's why I like Julian Sands in here.
I love him.
Oh, he was great.
He was definitely.
I after watching it a number of times now, at first I thought that Emery was dull, but actually, it's just he came across as a dick. But
was a dick.
He Nick, actually he was as perceptive as Nick and all that. The only difference is he had no.
He was just a dick about it.
Came out. I mean,
he's straight up at the beginning. He was one of the ones you get to see his reticence, and you get to see Joyce trying to convince sister to get Annie in. And you pretty much see that Emery did it just because his mother was a bleeding idiot who was a total spendthrift and didn't realize she lived in a special world and didn't realize that she was dragging them under, and he, in his way, was trying to keep them afloat and solvent and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he, there's a couple of times where he says basically, like, don't bother with the warnings, I'm broke.
Yeah, exactly. The
Like,
don't bother the one in the. I love that. First time I did, I'm like, what? I didn't really
but
get.
like you see what he sees in that fridge before
Yeah.
he even sets foot in the house, and it's like, yeah, he knew what was up.
Yeah, he
Tell
got a.
that to someone who's not broke. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he changes his mind when he gets there.
Yeah,
That's true.
I want to fucking leave. Fuck this. Take me to court for the money.
But they really, she really has a really unique cast. Well, a set of people that are coming to this. You've got um, a, how do you say it? A telepath, a remote viewer, an automatic writer.
A touch nose.
A remote
Mhm.
viewer.
Right.
A
Touch
Nick.
nose.
Well, that's
Someone
what Nick. Nick was a telepath with remote viewing capabilities, is what it says.
precog.
correct.
And
He could.
Well,
He
no,
could
that
go
would
look
be more of
at
a
any.
clairvoyant.
Yeah.
where Emery was considered a postcognate.
He could see the
Right.
past.
The little girl is the most powerful model.
And Victor, the older gentleman, he was considered precognate. So
Right.
And I remember him mostly from Emergency.
correct. So she really
Right.
had a bunch of different people with different abilities that she was bringing into this.
And then, of course, Annie, you got telepath and psychokinetic and just all kind of fun stuff.
Oh yes, Annie was definitely all kinds of fun stuff.
And she's
That's for sure.
basically Jean Grey out of the X-Men.
I
Yeah.
liked Vic
Yeah.
at first because when they were at the bar, he described the couple that was coming up, and and then afterwards he was like, I can tell a hawk from a buzzsaw. From like 20 miles, 100 miles away, or some shit like that.
Yeah, it was funny the way he walked. He's just saying, like, well, what are you talking about? And then two people walk by, like, oh. He's talking about the
Am I remembering correctly? I feel like I don't know. My brain's fritzing out. I can't remember his exact quote. But I know it was a quote. He did some literary quotations as he went along, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, I liked his character too.
I see a
Right.
pair of Roman fingers and
Yeah,
Roman hands and Russian fingers.
yeah, that's
Yes.
Russian thing because he grabbed the girl's ass.
Actually, he was the one that his power was utilized the least.
yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, the automatic rider, her power was kind of used the least, except for her Deus Ex Machina,
I mean,
Ex Machina ending.
Yeah.
she discovered what happened to the master, and then of course she got the little girl to let them all out. So she had the most important role, if not the most utilized.
Okay, so we know that they're going to this house, this mansion. A little bit of background on it. This mansion is known, for paranormal
Or they
phenomena.
killed 26 people.
23 people have disappeared, or as they say, died there. The house seems to be able to increase in size, yet only on the inside. And back in the history of it, Ellen Rimbauer was told by a psychic that if she was to continue building, that she would live forever. And that's why she continued building this house. Now there's No, the Rimbauers.
But it's like what the ghost is like, help us build or die.
You know, the ones that we do know of, you know, we know that the Mr. Rimbauer's partner, what was his name again? Pootsky or whatever.
Yeah, he was a
Douglas
guy who
Coby.
liked cowboys and chaps.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember.
Chaps and chaps.
I remember the name because
Yeah.
when he had his when Vic came back from the dead, basically it was like Posey and ring around the rosy. He kept doing that, like, and that's and then that scene where he gets ready to hang himself, where he tosses his hat to one of the kids and he motions
Yeah.
on his head and tosses the rose to April. I was like, oh my, that's dark.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a big creepy, and it's like that was one of the deaths that was
Mhm.
known in the house. Was
Well,
that
they
one?
say repeatedly that the house makes women disappear and just straight up kills the men,
Yeah.
and that it hates the men.
Mhm.
Correct.
So,
And we see that
yeah.
guy with
And
the
the deaths,
with the reporter. I mean,
the
he's
deaths started
But
during
actually,
the
actually,
house itself.
we haven't even mentioned. We need to mention that of course, our esteemed professor is about to have her tenure revoked because her department head Miller has it out for her, and he has hired this smarmy student whose name I don't recall offhand, to be who's a student reporter, to basically humiliate them. So he lets them into the house before they show up, and well, it doesn't go so well for the reporter.
No,
Actually,
in fact, something
Sukina,
happens to him
the
that has
ghost
Yeah.
of
nothing to do with
Sukina, lets
someone
him in.
else in the house.
Well, I mean, yeah, he had the he like let him through the gate, and he was like, you need to. I can't do it. I'm too busy. You go. Well, yeah,
well,
and
he's going to go with him. Well, why don't you go with
right,
him? Oh, I got a class to teach and
What are you,
finals
right.
to give out.
and weirdly, I don't want to say appropriate, but weird postscript to this, of course. At the end, you'll see it said, I think it said, in memory of David Dukes, who plays Miller.
Yes.
But he apparently had a heart attack and died during filming. So,
Oh wow.
yeah,
Casualty. But it
yeah,
is bad because they had, according to what I had heard, they had actually had a lot more for him to do
yeah.
at the end, but they couldn't do it because he died, essentially.
So they had a stand in basically for the zombie scenes. But yeah,
Wow.
So
I didn't
Miller,
know
yes,
that.
sends, as you were saying, Bollinger to the mansion, and that's where we start
Bollinger,
off, and
that was his name.
that's when we get to see actually Rose Red take its actual first victim. And like we were talking about before, Rose Red likes to kill the men and just make the women disappear.
Right.
And you know, that's one thing that gets me about this first scene and stuff with him. He's following Sakina, or she lets him in, right? When she doesn't
Right.
realize that's a ghost, okay? And he's following her to wherever. Why would you think that she went in the solarium? Why would you think she went in there? And why would you go in there looking for her?
Well-
Why would you possibly think she went in there?
I mean, the way that they had it is that her voice lured him into the kitchen, and then the door popped open to the solarium, so he thought, oh, that must be where it went. And now, the one thing I don't get is that there is a giant hornet's nest that is very easy
Yeah.
to spot amongst all the dead stuff. Why he runs right into it, I do not know.
Right.
He runs right into it, trying to get on the phone. It's like he forgot about it, but you know, we
Yeah.
know what happens.
I felt like his sense of self-preservation could have been stronger. That's definitely true. Now, one thing about this that I kind of wondered, I think I wondered the first time, but I kind of wondered this time, and I think it comes back to what we said before about how Joyce was not only knew more than she was letting on, but was straight up lying to people. Because even if the house was dormant, dormant, like practically dead, and she needed psychics to spark it back to life, then Bollinger should not have been able to be that spark. So it probably was that either she was straight up bullshitting about it being a dead cell, or she really was misinformed herself.
I think she was straight up lying, but like that's a unique thing to point out because how did all of that equipment get in that house?
Well, it's.
You know,
I mean,
Yeah,
that was all delivered, and nobody had a problem.
well,
right.
the
People
house
that
knew
have heard
that.
all these rumors about this place actually went in there and delivered all
Well,
this equipment.
Well, I think
actually, Annie was already sparking the house before she even got there.
oh yeah, I guess
It
that's
was
true.
calling her
Look, I got baby.
to come. It was whispering
Mhm.
for her to come.
Yeah,
While she was at home. So to me, it already knew of her existence.
And the ghosts
right,
already knew of Emery because those were some of the same ghosts that were showing up at Emery
right.
before he got there.
So
Well,
I guess maybe Joyce had maybe sparked it already with her interest in it, and yeah, I guess when you think about it that way, yeah, that definitely wasn't the first sign of life from the house. I figured the people who dropped off the equipment were allowed to leave because if they had been taken, might not have. It might have prevented the real important people from showing up. But Bollinger, yeah, who cares? They didn't know he was there.
well, I mean, again, it goes back to, I mean, Emery, who basically said it. It was, well, you stopped feeding it. Of course, there's not been many disappearances because
Right.
you when you stop bringing people to it, well, there's no activity. Well, there's no one to kill. And by the time you did put people into the house, it was in preparation for this whole thing. And the house is smart. It knows what's going on outside. It's not going to jeopardize its chances to get the two people at once. Yeah.
Very
Right.
true. So yeah, it wouldn't take the people that mean nothing because they're just dropping off equipment.
Especially I believe Joyce used the line at some point of these people are sparks, but Annie's a searchlight, something like that. And it's like, yeah, most of them were nothing compared to her in terms of the total psychic power they brought to the table. Yeah.
Yeah. Nick was the only question mark because he was that
I
kind of
a
guy.
little
Like,
of this and a little of that.
yeah.
Yeah, he seemed pretty capable. That's for sure.
He was a little bit mysterious about his powers, though. But we as an audience saw what he could do.
Like I said, there were some that, I mean, out of the group, I mean, he and Emery were probably the most powerful, other than Annie, of course, because Annie could blow them all away. Because it's just like I say, he was confident, and Emery was not.
Well, and what was her name? Pam didn't last very long at all.
No.
Well, Emery was confident that if the house didn't kill them all, his mother would.
But I found amusing when they all got there, and Joyce is going to show them around the house, and they take that rope and they tie it off and they're all walking around and everything. And oh man, what's his name? What's her little boyfriend's name? Again.
Who's?
Mr. Rimbauer.
Oh,
Oh,
Steven?
Grimdar.
Steven. Yeah, Steve. And Steve, I found it amazing. I found it kind of comical. Steve hasn't been there since he was a kid. And he's one of the first people that pipes up and says that the blueprints don't mean anything because it changes. But yet, she goes to turn this way. He said, no, you got to go this way. And that happens more than once on this little tour, that he directs her the right way to go. Okay, so he remembers the right way to go since he was a kid, but yet he always tells everybody this place changes all the time.
It could have been a sign of him being connected to the house and not even realizing it. Because he might have been just kind of going by gut, you might say.
Well, she got pissy with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She did.
Yeah, and I think she was kind of getting jealous of him spending time with Sister Rachel at first, from what I understand too.
So, what did you guys think of the rooms that you did get to see?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I like these things because they're imaginative. The art design is
That mirrored ballroom was great.
the Mirror Library is one of my favorites.
Yeah, library.
My favorite is room was the upside down room.
I thought that was me too, especially when Joyce said that Ellen had made that room just to mess with her husband. I found that quite interesting.
Right.
Any other comments on the rooms? No.
I don't think so.
Well, yeah, I mean, there might be more when we get into like production design and whatever, but there definitely were some there were some interesting ones and some interesting, and there was like that one hallway that they said was like a visual effect, like it seemed to, did I understand correctly that it was kind of getting shorter as it went along?
And it also within
it would change. It would get bigger. It would get smaller. It would get shorter.
Well, yeah.
I love the scene when they first go upstairs and they decide they're going to go back downstairs, and the rope ends at a fucking wall.
Yeah, the rope is going right into the wall. Yeah.
And they said that hallway was Sakina originally designed this hallway.
Yeah, she had designed it, and they showed her drawing of it and stuff.
But if you watch the archways through the hallway, in like about a 5-minute span of the movie, the archways changed what they looked like 3 times.
Yeah, like I said, that Zagina was some kind of fucking voodoo lady.
But they had 3 different looks to them in a shorter period of time while they were there, in that area. Okay. So they've all investigated the house together. They're having some munchies, and Joyce goes to show Annie a way to look. She has her look through this panel, which Nick points out to her to push on this panel, and we see from our point of view as watching it, but she's actually looking through a toy. A dollhouse of this house, and she's able to see into another room by looking through this house, which I thought was kind of neat.
I love that. I love that little dollhouse. That was fucking great.
Which Joyce tells her that she will later let her get it down for her to actually play with.
Well, she doesn't tell her that till later.
Okay, so let's see where are we now? There's so many different things that happen, and you gotta.
Oh yeah, I mean there's a lot to it. It's a 4-hour movie, so
Well, I do believe that the older guy, Vic, he
Right.
he ultimately ends up seeming like he follows Pam, or what he thinks
Right.
but
is
not yet.
out. This is this is not in chronological order, but
Yeah, I noticed. 'Cause, Pam hadn't even died yet, and obviously Pam was dead when he followed her, because that was a ghost.
Right.
Well, actually, after the little,
Still not
before-
sure how Pam died, but
before the,
Drowned
I kind of jumped
apparently.
ahead a little bit before she got to see through the house. They had ordered.
so
pizza.
that was her in the water.
They had
Yeah.
ordered,
To tell you
they
the
had ordered
truth,
pizza. And when
nobody.
they go to pay for the pizza,
Yeah.
Annie's playing with the phonograph, and
Yeah.
she was told it doesn't work. Well, while they're
Yeah,
getting
she
the
fixed
pizza
it.
and meeting Stephen King,
Right.
all of a sudden they hear the music because she gets it to work, and they all start dancing.
I love how
Mhm.
Annie and the boyfriend were dancing, but they were up in the air. Did you notice that?
Right.
Because he's
Right.
even said, "Look, what are you doing to me?" They're like dancing in the air.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun little bit. Annie has an unusual obsession with Glenn
Stephen.
Miller era music, and which kind of, in a sense, this is one of the things that kind of harkens back to the to the Shining a little bit, because the heyday of this house apparently was pretty close to the heyday of the Overlook, and so you get a little bit of that same music factoring in as in some of these scenes, and it's good music, but it also just it fits the soundtrack well for that like nice little tension. Yeah, that scene's a good little release of tension. You got the amusement of seeing Stephen King and having him deliver some lines, and he's
well,
delivering pizza, which always makes people happy. And even Emery is happy for a brief moment because there's pizza.
Well,
Yeah,
funny you say that about the music. Yeah, the house was actually supposedly built in 1906.
something with Annie that needs to be mentioned is when she was a kid, a dog bit her, and she
Yeah,
ultimately like stoned the owners of the dog as well, and
as
during
you do.
arguments with Sister Rachel and her father, she would turn up that Glenn Miller music, and
Right.
shit would happen. So, and in order for her to come to Rose Red, she uh basically threw a fit and broke the china, and also
froze all the water.
froze all the water. And so you got to see those in flashbacks over time, over the course of the miniseries, to show you the entirety of
Well,
what
a lot of those scenes were actually in that first episode. I think didn't it start with the scene with the old couple? I think it
Yeah,
did.
like
it started with
It
the old
did.
couple, but the
not
freezing of the water came later
yeah,
on.
you're right. And the actual dog bite was later on, but like
Yes.
the
Yeah.
stoning of the house was, I think, like the
I heard them
opening
yelling
scene
about
or
the
one of
dog.
them.
Yeah.
We hadn't
But
actually seen it.
and I will say we didn't really mention much about Annie and Rachel's parents. They're kind of interesting too. Her father actually was a very interesting. Like he comes off as this total dick, but eventually you do realize that
He just cares about his kid, and
he does care about
he's
his kid.
trying to
He
do
just
his best
doesn't.
he can with someone that's
He
way more
just
than he can
doesn't know
handle.
how to.
Yeah, like how
He
can he
doesn't
handle
know
it?
how to.
He
Yeah.
can't really punish her. He can't
Mm,
do anything or what's her power. He's just trying to do his best he
right.
can Annie, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
Right.
I do notice that once we have gone past that light calm before the storm, I do think that once you start really having deaths,
Right.
gets the haunting really tunes up. And
Right.
around,
Yeah.
basically, once you get to that first night, it just really
Mhm.
moves it.
I tell you what, it's a fucking weekend. I'm staying awake.
Though
Well,
What I
will
got a
say-
kick out of is those machines that Joyce had going, and they were all sitting there talking, and you saw the capacity of the room start going up and up.
Yeah,
Right.
63
Up.
or whatever. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
April tries to approach Annie twice in the beginning.
Hmm.
Once in the mirror library, and then once. Well, actually, no, 3 times because she also tried to approach her.
What was with that fucking creepy doll?
Because she tried to approach her over in the bedroom that night as well. So that was where she's like, it's like, is it you afraid of the boogie man? And she's like, not boogie man.
Boogie man, boogie woman.
Right.
That's
Oogie actually said oogie woman. She couldn't say
You're
boogie.
right. Right. Which might have been that might have been a nice little nod there to Misery, because oogie was a favorite word of Annie Wilkes. But that's, like I said, a very different Annie. But one quick question for you guys. I've heard a couple of times people talk about the episodes as if there were 4 of them.
I
But
watched like a movie, so I have no idea.
I watched that YouTube one that I think is probably the one you watch, Kroll. I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
If you're watching it, there are very, very, very clear episode breaks at an hour 20 and 2:40, and
know
IMDb
the
says there's
commercial,
3 episodes. So I was curious about those of you who said there were 4, how you came to that.
Because there was originally 4 when it was broadcast on TV. They showed the first 2,
Yeah.
and then like a week later they showed the other 2.
So it's really weird that they would have cut it to where there were clear breaks at the hour 20 and 2:40 mark. That's really weird.
It is weird.
Because again, if you watch it, you'll know what I mean. Like, there are very clear startup, like a narrated voiceover to start the episode. And so, yeah, that's really weird that they would have changed the cut for the original air date. I guess,
the last starts very differently than the others.
But-
It almost starts right in the thick of things, which makes sense, because by the time you're 2/3 of the way, 2/3 of the way through the movie,
yeah.
it's all going down at that point. Really,
Well, that was, again, the way I'm looking at it cut at that point. I think Vic had just died.
mhm.
Pam was gone, and we knew she was gone, but not everyone else did.
Yeah, I just looked it up.
And Emery's mother and Dr. Miller were running loose on the estate,
Yeah.
and you knew something was about to happen. But what's really cool is the way it was cut. The way I watched at the end of the first episode, basically, is them really getting settled in the house. So, like y'all said, it's almost, you go almost a full episode before they're even really in the building. So if it's cut 4 ways, I guess that pizza party would have come right around the end of the second episode, which is a logical cutoff point. Like y'all said, the calm before the storm. But I was just curious about that.
Yeah, it's hard to remember now exactly where they cut it, but I do remember distinctly because I was working, recording this and setting it up, and you had to,
So I just got this from Google because I was curious about Pam, and it says later that night, Pam Asbury a psychometric is lured to the garden by a ghost in disguise, and at the foggy pond, she presumably is drowned by the evil spirits of Rose Red. So you guys were right. She drowned.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's
odd.
just when Vic actually goes and
It
sees
was
her
just very
body
confusing
floating
when
in the lake.
they did it.
It's just a shirt, but he thought he was following Pam. So
Yeah, that was later. That was after, he found out she was dead. He thought he was following her. Like, how did she get there? But she thought she was following the Christian woman, I think. But the Christian woman was in her bed. So evidently, the ghost can take the form of a live person as well as a dead person.
Yeah, it was the only time. That was an inconsistency because
Yeah,
all the rules pointed to them only being able to control ghost people that died, except for this time.
yeah, because the Christian
Well,
woman wasn't dead.
also, the ghost made the voicemail that went to Professor Miller.
They changed
different.
that too as well.
So,
Yep.
you know what I wonder though? That scene in the night where she's sitting in the bed and you see that thing roll down underneath the carpet and then up
Yeah.
on the covers in the bed. I wonder if it was doing something that it grabbed her form and then
Yeah, that must have been it.
But
Nothing else really makes sense.
I kept thinking back to Evil Dead with the
we
tree.
really didn't see Pam die. All we
No.
knew was that she died.
She was just gone, so I was like, assume that she died.
There's
I
only
couldn't see her.
Right.
You only see one person really die on screen. You see them after they're dead, like hanging or.
Well, we never saw Pam
That would
like
be
after she
Bollinger.
died either until much later.
That would be Bollinger.
Because
Well,
Bollinger, you don't even see him get hung,
no, you don't.
and they don't
You see him
kill him
grabbed.
until later. They even state that he's still alive because because the ghosts were using his living form, and then he must have hung again. He hung himself off screen, so he was still hanging when they found him. But again, nobody dies on screen except for Vic.
Yeah.
Vic dies on screen
But he has a heart attack, so.
because that was
Right.
at the last
But
minute.
that was very specifically shown and very pointedly shown because everyone sees it. You had Emery literally turn his back because he thinks he's having another vision. And meanwhile, Nick is doing everything he can to get outside and try to help. And it's like, yeah, that was actually, I think that was very close to the end of the second episode because I feel like they picked it up right where they left off with that, where Emery had run off screaming and was tearing through the house.
Yeah.
Lost. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that scene just makes Emery look like even more of an ass.
And it wasn't long
Right.
after
Yeah.
that.
But then you realize that he
fingers.
wasn't trying to be an ass. He just thought he was having some kind of hallucination episode cover.
Well, he hurt his
Right.
mother, and that triggered him already. He's
Yeah.
he's definitely, like I say, he's
How
definitely.
the fuck did he hurt his hand though? I remember.
When Annie stands on top of the thing, I swear she purposely makes herself fall so that all the doors can like open, because she knows deep down that she's the one that's actually like whatever. But as soon as she gets knocked out, the doors open, and Emery goes to the doors, and when she actually wakes up, all the doors slam shut again, and Emery still has his fucking hand in the fucking door.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you see the fingers fall to the floor.
Well, the ghosts do try to stall him, but I like it's like I'm hard up, but I'm not that hard up.
Yeah.
He does have some humor.
Yeah, just a bit.
A lot of the evil that he says is unfortunate, is stuff that's really reflected on what others are thinking. And
Right.
the thing is he's the one who's an
Like
ass.
even the sister Rachel, when he was saying that she just wants to kill her sister sometimes and blah blah, and she runs out all upset and she's like, he's right, like.
You know,
Yeah.
in a sense, it's almost like Emery is there to almost kind of like state to Sister Rachel some of the evil thoughts that maybe she might have actually thought while trying to take care of Annie. You know, but ultimately she's like not that evil person that Emery thinks that she should have been. You know.
Well, he's the one who basically is there to fill in the audience because he's been made into kind of a less sympathetic character. They can use him to make outright kind of nasty statements about what people are thinking without totally making you mad at the other characters. I mean, I remember him even saying to Nick at one point, he's like, "I'm tired of being wicked. You tell."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because he knows that Nick knows most of this stuff, and Nick's a little more tactful.
Yeah, he's more reserved in it. Yes.
When I
Mhm.
didn't like Emery was when when he was actually fucking hurt, and he literally said, "Okay, why don't you just take this ball and whip it at the back of her head and just put her out of her misery?" You know, that was when I didn't really like him that much.
He was a prick. I mean, he was definitely a prick, and I was so shocked when he died.
Well, he was one of the characters that did grow out of there. I mean, a lot of the characters that survived actually did grow as people, including Emery. You know,
All right.
I wish Nick wouldn't have been one of the ones that died. That's all. I liked Nick.
Yeah.
Which one was Nick?
Well, this one fits
He was
like
he was Julian Sands.
Oh, Julian. Yeah, I fucking love Julian Sands.
Yeah. This one fits the rule that one of my brothers established years ago, that in a good movie your favorite character has to die. You know. But yeah, he definitely was an amusing character, but he was there, and one of the more likable ones. There were a couple who were less likable. Sadly, we didn't get to spend much time with Pam or Vic, but they were likable enough. We just didn't get a lot of chance to
We had
get
a
to
lot more
know
Dick than
them.
we did Pam.
Yeah, there was more
Mm.
growth to be had with the survivors. The only one, well, actually, no, all of them had growth.
Yeah.
But the ones that had the least amount of growth were the ones that died. Like I said, Nick didn't need any growth because he was already kind of that perfect person to begin with. And well, Vic was already you knew he was being set up to die from the beginning. They foreshadowed that with the nitroglycerin pills. And well, I mean, then of course the first casualty, she was just a casualty.
I still remember her when she played that Bones.
Yeah, that's what I remember it was. And I saw her, I'm like, she looks so familiar. I looked, I'm like, oh, of course, Bones. I love that show.
Well, and also because Zoe, her sister, is so well known, they have that look about them. But I've only
That's
seen
her
one.
sister. Oh,
I've only
shit.
seen one. I've only seen one episode of Bones, and it was the one that
great show.
featured John Ratzenberger, and I can't remember who the woman was, but they played this old couple who were murderers, and they were just so charming and cheerful and likable, and I love that episode.
That show, you gotta watch that show, man. I originally watched that show because of Dave Warriors that loves him on Angels. So I'm like, oh, I'll give it a try. And it's
Oh,
not
yeah,
my
I
type
forgot
of
he
show
was on that.
normally, but I fell in love with it. Bones I love how she explains everything, and she explains it so you don't feel stupid, but she explains it well, but in smaller terms than the big science terms or whatever, and it makes you feel like you're learning stuff and watching it, and it's such a great show.
It
And,
was a good show.
She's
I
such
like
a great
I
character.
like the banter that went on in it too. You know.
Now, I really hated when they switched the doctor for the young guy at first. I didn't like Sweets at first, and then I grew to love him, and and then what happened to him, and then it was just wow.
No,
I think I still need to watch like the final few episodes.
now with back to Rose Red,
Sorry.
I mean, the solution was there, of course, all along because Annie had the power to always to leave, but the
I have the power.
issue was getting
Kira!
the point to her, because it's as Nick said that she's kind of like up on high, so that they can communicate with her. They cannot fully communicate with her.
Yeah, because even
Steve
Steven
can
ripped
communicate
our
a little bit, but she's too high for him. That's when they come up with the plan to have her do the writing with writing woman. I can't remember her name, and
Happy, I believe.
and then for some reason that works, so that they start writing together, and then she writes, "Okay, open the doors," and then that translates over to Annie, and Annie manages to open the doors and let them out, which. I mean, then you've got like Emery confronting his mother, who
that was great.
what was it? Who actually introduced the racial slur? What was it? Limey Choctaw. Which
Yeah.
He's
like, I've heard
his mother.
all things, but
They had actually been in the kitchen because Kathy wanted to go get some iced tea or some shit, and Nick followed her because she shouldn't really be alone walking in the house.
she says, "Going alone, I'm with God."
And Emery's mother actually comes and attacks her, and Nick comes to her rescue.
He throws a football at her head.
But what they don't realize is that she sees the ghosts that are standing there or nearby, and apparently she calls him a limey Choctaw. I've been called many things, but never that.
Well,
I didn't even realize this. Like Kathy, played by Judith Ivey, who I recognized her. I was like, I've seen her in some stuff. And I didn't quite realize that she's the one that plays Keanu's mother in Devil's Advocate. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a slightly different, but very similar role in some ways. She's more likable here, though.
and Stephen is good about finding very obscure slurs, because Limey is there, but the other one is more of a. That one's more. I had to look it up, and most people I knew from the UK didn't even know what that was.
Right.
Well, because the second part of it refers to a naval officer.
Oh,
it's kind of like a double, Limey. The other is, basically British Navy person, which was a.
Which is kind of like, which explains his reaction. He's kind of amused. He's like, I've never been called that before. It's like, I think he had to think for a minute.
But yeah, that was just entertaining play on words. I do find it. I am surprised that they didn't try to say, "Hey, Emery's alive." To her.
He did. He said, Emily.
Yeah, they
he
told
did
her.
say it, and she's like, and she spit in his face the drink and said, "You're a liar."
Then they leave her to die. Just
I go, you'll be okay. Yeah, you'll be okay. Sure.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think one of the
It's
parts
like, what did he say? Like, I would have preferred to use something like they use like linens to tie her up, like to hog tie her, and he's like, I would have preferred to use like
laundry rope or something.
Something like that.
Well, I like when Emery decided after everybody,
and then they're like, "Oh, she's more of a read books than escape artist or something like that."
So
when the wind all comes up inside the the room, and everybody's paying attention to all that, and Emery decides he's gonna try and go after Annie. That was just wicked with the fucking night, man. You know,
Oh, the knight in shining armor.
yes.
That's where I thought Emery was gonna get killed.
I thought he was gonna get killed right then and there too. I was like, oh, that's it. She's had it.
Wow.
Well, and Nancy, Nancy, I think her character, she ended up trying to
Yeah.
like attack Annie, and that was not going to fly with the house. You know,
No.
she was pissing off the spirits, man. But she attempted to try to knock Annie out, and the thing came from the fire, and that's when Emery showed us that he still had some power. By
Yeah, he made it disappear. Yeah.
He had, it was actually kind of funny because it was, at first you look at it and you think it's just the power to, dismiss his visions, but it's actually, he has the power to banish the monsters.
Spirit, yeah, kind of like a
Heavy.
priest in Dungeons and Dragons, a cleric. I mean.
So yeah, it's just like even with his mother, when he finally stood up to his mother on the way out, he was the one who took her down.
Yeah.
And
I've
Right.
been hearing you in the night with your problem down there.
Interesting to see Matt Ross, who plays Emery, has also been in a lot of things over the years, including apparently playing Johnny Cash in Ring of Fire opposite Jewel. Now I'm going to have to see that.
That was a great fucking movie.
Ring of Fire was good.
Great movie. Can't say enough good things about it.
I mean, he's a good actor, and he played that part really well. Yeah, he played an ass, but to make a part where you get that annoyed with them when they're supposed to be annoying, that takes the talent as well. But they do get away. I mean,
Burn, ring of fire.
Well, as they're going out,
Yeah.
Annie does this neat little thing with dominoes.
Yeah.
And there is a moment where she does take a dominoes with her mind and flip like a domino rally effect. But she actually in her mind knocks this dominoes that she has set up around the dollhouse, because evidently somehow she's gotten the dollhouse onto the floor and surrounded by these dominoes, which she just knocks down, and then you see them knock down, and it caves the stones.
Call the rocks.
Well,
and
she kept
it
calling it
starts
a bad
destroying the-
house. Bad house.
Bad house. Bad
Right.
house.
Now,
Yes.
I mean, the only things that happened in between then was, you had the end of the story with Steve, where it began with the mother basically taking him to the house when she was just going to take stuff to sell, and him being told to come back later to help them build. And then, of course, being, he got that confrontation later, and he was able to also resist that. But then you also have the end of Joyce's story, where her desperation to prove that she is indeed valid as a person and as a professional, it overtook her, and she ended up staying behind until she realized, oh crap, what have I done?
Yeah.
That was
Too late.
yeah.
And the house wouldn't let her go.
And we missed that one part when they're looking for Kathy, and
Yeah.
they end up in the tower, and Steve saves Kathy, and they realize that it wasn't Ellen that was doing it; it was actually April.
and
No, they realized that April was there, but Eleanor was still around.
Yeah.
Well, that was also
And-
where, of course, I don't know if this was mentioned earlier, but this is also where we found out what really happened to John Rimbauer all those years ago,
Yeah.
where he had apparently Zakia or whatever
he-
had kind of
Tina.
Zakina had kind of lured him into a trap, if you will, and she and Ellen pushed him out the window. Yeah, they threw him out the window.
And they didn't make it as clear in Rose
Yeah.
as they did in the Diary of Ellen Rembauer that Ellen and Sakina were basically setting him up to get killed.
Yeah.
Which was, they made it. I remember the first time I watched, I was like, oh, he was even having an affair with
John
her.
Rimbauer had actually had like problems with the ladies, even while he was married to Ellen Rimbauer in the movie.
Yeah.
He had his own Russian fingers.
Yeah,
He did. Yes.
fingers. And in order for her to keep building the house in the movie, she had to use sex to do it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I say, I think that the Diary of Ellen Rimbauer is a good supplementary. It's not a great film, but it is a good supplementary piece.
And
Good
if you did watch both of them, there are scenes that are in both the same scene.
Oh yeah,
Definitely used. Like when you first get that first picture of the entryway in the rose red, it's also in Ellen.
well, it's just like when they have it where they have the scene where the worker goes off and shoots the foreman.
yeah.
Right.
They have Posey go to check on it because he's just showing off Rose Res. Like, see, I'm building this nice house. It can be yours if you marry me. And I'm like, oh. And then, so what's that? I don't know. He'll take care of it. I mean, that's. But they managed to. But they do manage to get out of the house, and they come back 6 months later, which is weird because he had said that the wrecking balls were due like the following day.
But not
Like
the
said
following day, July 1st, and this was Memorial Day weekend, so basically a month from there.
Which
Yeah.
is they had delayed it by 6 months, but
Yeah,
they come in and they
kind of weird.
memorial roses at the
Well, they
Village
needed
needs
6
to
months to
remember.
get rid of the 2 other vehicles and
Right.
bodies that were on the grounds, and
they kind of had that sad, the kind of sad scene where you see Joyce watching them leave, as of course the music plays, which that does kind of give you kind of.
Is it sad though?
At least these were better ghosts than ghosts that showed up in the Haunted Mansion movie. I mean, that
Watch that movie.
That was a Disney movie, dude. It wasn't meant to scare people.
I don't know. Disney
Well-
had like The Witcher in the Woods
No.
and some of those. So
Here's a question for you though. Remind me again, the company that Steve sold this to, they were going to put in condominiums, right?
Condominiums, yep.
yeah.
yeah,
Could you imagine trying to sell condominiums on the former site of the house like this?
Well,
Could you-
that's what I
be
said
honest,
to David.
to be honest, supposedly there were Native American artifacts that were found on the grounds to begin with when they first
right.
building.
I
Or at
guess
least that's the rumor.
So
I
it's
guess-
poltergeist
Well,
all
I
over
mean,
again.
the house was cursed from the outset. I mean, there were 4 people killed before anyone even moved in. So that's, yeah.
I don't know if I would want to rent a condo or own a condo on that site.
I guess for Steve, it's like, well, I got my money. I'm okay.
That's right. Peace.
Every time we watch this, Tammy's like, "Would you, if you had a chance to spend the night there, would you?" I said, "Heck yeah," but
No, I don't want to die.
No.
Well, yeah, David. Remember, the house kills the men. It only makes the women disappear.
No, it's a neat house. If you could promise me that the ghosts wouldn't screw with me, I'd be fine with it. It'd be a cool house, but nah, not with those ghosts in there. No.
David wants to go to Waverly.
wouldn't mind.
Actually, the one place I've always wanted to tour is the Winchester House.
Well,
That
that's
place would be cool to tour.
I'd like to tour that too, but it's not to me. It's not spooky, but I'd love to tour it. Waverly is supposed to be actually spooky.
Actually, that was one thing we didn't mention that was a neat little touch, was that prior to this excursion, supposedly the last disappearance was an old lady on a guided tour. That
Yes.
they group went in, they came out, and one of them was missing. And they were all like, wait a minute, where is this person? I thought she was with us.
I like that you saw the bloody purse was all that was left. That was kind of a
Yeah.
but yeah, that was they may disappear, but I have a feeling that they weren't disappeared as much as they were just killed off screen and then the body thrown somewhere. The ghost just didn't like to clean up the men. They were willing to clean up the women.
They had a zombie janitor. There you go. But it was very, very selective in the work it would do. Yes.
Well, now, and that land, I bet you that he made the family fortune back by selling that land as close
Probably.
as it was to downtown. You could see
Right.
if it was downtown that land would have sold for millions.
Mm-hmm.
He'd have made that Rembauer fortune back in plenty of money on that sale.
As much as land freaking costs, yeah.
Now, those people who built those condominiums might have buyer's remorse after a while.
You're right.
Yeah, we can keep renting to new people
Actually,
all the time.
one thinks that part of the reason for the delay might have been they might have gotten cold feet and then eventually decided, you know what, screw it. What, we don't believe in no ghosts.
Every time I think about a house that's been in a haunted, like haunting type setting, I think of Casper, and the fact that they go in there and into whip stab, and they're like, "Who you're going to call? Somebody else."
Right.
Or the guy who goes in there, oh, no problem, piece of cake, comes out with his fucking head like all the way around. Oh, it was no problem, piece of cake.
Oh, I mean, that's the this ain't no friendly ghosts over here. That's for sure.
Nope.
In any case, I guess we're at production, aren't we?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful production design. A lot of the CG effects, of course, have aged horribly, but most of them that are made for TV do at that time, especially
Right.
The bees.
Well, again, given the time period this came out and the fact that it was a TV production, I think I looked online, I think it said that this had like a 37 million budget, which is pretty high for television, but by movie standards, I'm sure that a theatrical production with that budget would have also aged a fair bit in this time. But in terms of the design, again, this is we talked a little bit about the design of some of the different rooms and the building itself. It's an impressive design, no doubt about it. And some of the other basic stuff, like that horrible blue car that the Emmy's mother drives, the little things like that were just great little touches.
Mommy's a little scoot about.
Yeah.
I thought it was great too because I mean, like you said, it's a made for TV movie, so there's only so much they can do. It's so many effects they can put in it, and there's probably a limit as to how much gore they can.
I know
put
this
in it
is
too.
2002 as well too.
So I think what they were able to actually put in it, and whatever their budget was, I think they did a good job of bringing it to life.
And to be honest, how many like films can you say to date that they actually did about a whole like psychic investigation thing? I mean, this is before the like movies like The Conjuring and Conjuring 2 and Annabelle, things like that that started coming out later about the Warren stuff. You
I
know,
love those movies,
um,
and they're
so
based on true stories.
yep.
Or
And
even the TV show Ghost Adventures wasn't out yet then either, and stuff like that.
My friend Joe met the Warrens.
I know I still have some old Warren documentaries of them going out to like investigate like ghosts and poltergeists and shit on VHS. So
Well, sometimes the documentaries can be more creepy than the movies. Like A Haunting in Connecticut and Haunting in Georgia, the documentaries are way creepier than the movies were.
I have those. Those are cool. I like haunted stuff.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's always fun.
Where
but
I
yeah,
live,
the production. Oh, go ahead.
where I live, I I lived at one time not far from, not far from where David's parents live now, which is about an hour or so away from where we live, in a town called Horicon, and there was actually a place that was considered haunted there. And I remember when I moved up there, and all the locals would talk about it. Everybody that was like my age, yeah, we went there, just about got into the damn place, and the cops showed up. I was like pissed.
Mm.
Too bad.
It's like
There are
that.
also some other places that you've been to around here that you said were haunted.
Oh, Seminary Woods.
Well, yeah, which is where I went and filmed some of the anthology that
My
I'm.
grandmother's house.
I mean, shoot, Grave Encounters, where the guy gets they get caught by the security and kicked out. Of course, they were persistent; they came back, but
Right.
they didn't get to leave. They didn't have a happy Stephen King ending.
Yeah, happy ending, huh?
We'll have to
Right.
cover Grave Encounters one of these days.
Well, I
One-
keep
one
trying to tell
interesting
David
thing-
that we have a ghost. My kitty before Sassy still lives here.
Uh-huh.
Another
Because-
interesting side note with this one about the production that we didn't really mention before. I was looking into it as y'all were talking, brushing up on what I'd read before. But like I said, this was originally pitched. King apparently pitched the idea to Spielberg of doing a haunted house movie, and when Spielberg eventually split, he went to McGarris, who did a lot of those TV movies, The Shining and The Stand and whatever. And Garris apparently passed. And then King had, if y'all recall, he was hit by an automobile and actually nearly killed
Yeah,
while he was out on a walk. And apparently he went back after as sort of a recovery process, as sort of a getting back into the swing of things project. He basically converted this from a screenplay into a mini series, and apparently got it done pretty quickly. But that was sort of I guess the spark he needed to do that, I guess.
I
But
heard about that. That this
yeah.
was part of
Yeah,
his,
sit after the
part
accident.
of his
Like, what happened?
recovery.
Yeah.
Now I know. All right.
Who
David,
knows?
what's the name? David, what's the name of that book that you have and I do of Stephen King?
Are you talking about the Stephen King universe?
I think so. Yeah, because it
Huh.
says something in there about
There's a book out there called the Stephen King universe, which, as a fan of Stephen King, I came across. These were these editors that got together and basically came up with this theory that Stephen King actually created like almost his own like Marvel universe with his like
Oh yeah. Oh, he has. Yeah.
and you can basically connect each character and each title with
Mhm.
Like that
various
TV show.
other books, and they mapped it out chronologically in this book. So,
Oh, very cool.
so
It's a really good read. It's really interesting.
I mean, it would be interesting to have them go back and like do another edit of it because it's only had
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Oh yeah,
But
There's
the,
a TV show
they,
based on it,
they
dude.
say that
Castle
they
Rock.
say in this this novel that the Dark Tower is the fulcrum of the universe.
Yes,
I was gonna say
it
that's
is.
the center of most of it. Now there are books
Yeah.
that supposedly have no relationship to that universe, according to King.
Mhm.
But
And there is also an unauthorized account of some of the books that Stephen King never did publish.
Well,
Um,
another interesting thing is that given the Dark Tower actually established King as a figure in his own multiverse because he is a character in one of those novels.
oh yeah,
So that's kind of a fun further extension of that.
which
One
makes
of my favorite books of his is Eyes of the Dragon, and I actually one
Yes.
of my tattoos
Yeah.
is basically based on inside the front cover of that book.
Eyes of the Dragon would make an excellent little movie.
Good deal.
Oh, I've always said that would be awesome.
It's a nice fairy
I
tale.
love the Gunslinger trilogy as well.
well, and Randall Flagg is in Eyes of the Dragon, so
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean Randall Flagg or Martin or whatever you want to call him, a Man in Black.
Yeah.
He's in a
The
lot of
Devil.
works, which
Mhm.
is there. But that's some of the common things. I mean, there's the Talisman
Mhm.
and Black House, which connects to stuff like that. It is neat how to see these connect. So it's
And
not.
what's Derry? I think it is the that shows up a lot. And again, the Overlook Hotel gets a mention in Misery. There were a couple of connections in Misery to other ones. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Makes you wonder if there's a connection to Rose Red and the house that tries
Right.
to Jake in the third book of the Dark Tower trilogy.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's not trilogy. It was a trilogy at the time I was reading it.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't
Well,
Book
I
Three
think
come
we
out
all
before
agree that
this
Stephen
one?
King is really quite brilliant.
Right.
Well, I say it makes sense in a way because his first Dark Tower book stemmed from stories that he wrote back in college, and those were
And
probably
it reads like it.
books. So yeah,
the Dark Tower is based on a Robert Browning poem
yes,
called "To Children
Right.
the Dark Tower Came."
Yep.
and the Wasteland.
He was inspired by that, and that is a very cool poem to begin with. So,
Yeah, that one and T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland are the two biggest inspirations,
Mm-hmm.
and both of them are interesting works. But it's great to cover King on the channel. But I think the last thing would be like what music, which
Right.
I will say the music in this is very iconic.
Mhm.
When I hear the music for this, I think the movie. I'm not sure it's music that I'd want to necessarily listen to myself. And King, again, likes to curse certain types of music to where you're now associating them with the horror genre.
Well, I've seen some of King's picks. Like he is a well-known, not just a writer. He is well-known as a pop culture fanatic, and he publishes best of lists and does those. And I've seen some of his music lists, and he has some very interesting and eclectic musical tastes. I'll say that.
I mean, shoot, I'll never think about that song the same way again when thanks to 1408. Only just begun. I was like, oh god, now I get it.
The Carpenters.
Yeah, because that's not how that song originally hit. But after that movie, it hit very differently.
So on the soundtrack of Rose Red, you got "In the Mood," which was performed by Glenn Miller. Then you got "A Summer Place," which was performed by Percy Faith and his orchestra. Pennsylvania 65000, which was performed by Glenn Miller, and "Moonlight Serenade," which is performed by Glenn Miller. So definitely a lot of Glenn Miller stuff.
Yeah, put Glenn Miller in that horror type thing. Mm.
And then let's see, the actual music was done by Gary Chang. The music for like I would say the composing music.
Yeah, the score. Yeah. And
Yeah,
the score was quite good. I thought it was very fitting to the movie.
Yeah, I like that little that little like sort of harp thing that they do throughout. You know what I'm talking about?
I guess he was the same composer for "Storm of the Century," which was done in '99.
That's not quite good. I mean, they definitely, if you hear
and the illustrious Island of Dr. Moreau.
not so good a movie.
What are you talking about?
But yeah,
All right. Well, then I guess we should be moving on to our favorite scenes and favorite characters. So, Carl, why don't we go with you first?
Okay. Well, Annie's probably my favorite character. She just kicks ass, and then Julian Sands. Again, he kicks ass as well. So it seems like I said, he seems to know what's going on more than anybody else does. Cool. And as far as scene, there's a lot of great scenes. I don't know. I think kind of when the scientist doctor kind of goes a little crazy and covers her hands with the blood and then covers his face and he screams, "You're crazy!" And he's freaking out because her blood is on there. And he's like, "Go wash it off and then go get tested for AIDS." She's like, "I gave you something," and that was just a fucking crazy scene. And you see a little bit of how she's already a little bit crazy.
Okay. So, Jake, how about you?
I'd say there are a few pretty fun characters, but Nick is easily my favorite character in this one. As far as scenes, a little harder to come up with a clear winner there. The one Kroll just mentioned was pretty fun. I did kind of like. But I think generally speaking, I'm just going to say generally speaking, I just enjoyed the character development. I know that's a very broad and general statement, but I'm having trouble thinking of a specific moment. But I just think that there's some really great character development in the movie, and so I enjoyed seeing some of the play out. Yeah.
Good. Good enough. Enough said on that. That's I definitely understand what you're saying. It is one of those that's kind of hard to pinpoint just one. So.
Oh,
Forrest?
actually, I will say I'll give a slight lead, just again because it was such a great tension breaker. The pizza party / dance sequence was kind of a fun scene, so I'll give that a little shout out. And Stephen King's little cameo, I'll give that a little shout out.
Okay, that sounds cool. How about you, Forrest?
All right. Favorites. I would say favorite scenes. I mean, King can't. I have to agree. I agree. With Jake, it's really hard to pick out, but I would take definitely King's cameo. Ooh, man. Oh god, there was one oh god, I'm trying to. There was one moment that they were locked in a room and they came across something. That was a nice freaky moment. But favorite character, Well, maybe not my favorite, maybe not my favorite character, but I don't know. Jimmy Simpson was. I thought Jimmy Simpson was really. I don't know. I mean, the whole cast was great. I mean, but I would say Jimmy Simpson. But Jimmy Simpson as Kevin, the college newspaper writer, journalist. He was really good.
Sure,
Okay.
Be nice 34.
How about you, Brandon?
Nick is the easy one, but I admit Emery has grown on me over the years. Not because I used to hate the character, but there's actually a much more depth to him than I originally looked
That
at.
doesn't mean it's good.
And with repeated viewings, I've gotten to feel more for where he was coming from in a lot of his stuff, and a lot of where he was going. But also, my favorite scene is at the end where Joyce suddenly realizes the mistake that she's made, and too late now.
Yeah, the house locked her in and just said, nope, you ain't getting out. You had your chance.
Mhm. I do like that she kind of gets what's coming to her at the end, which was
Yes.
Yes.
King is good about that. He likes to pay off bad karma.
Okay. I guess for me, Nick is my favorite character. I love how he knows what's going on, but yet he's somewhat mysterious, and but he like tries to keep the cool,
Yeah,
and everything. Um,
he's a
I
great
do agree
character.
with a lot of things that have already been said about favorite scenes. But one of my favorites is when the night comes to life. I really like that. I thought that was like just wicked.
When what comes to life?
The
Oh
night.
yeah. Okay.
I like that part.
It's hard for me to pick one favorite scene myself too. It's interesting because I think my best scene that I like is the whole scene where the house is being talked about, and because it shows you the series of events, how it happens, and also the initial tour of the house, because you get to hear a lot of the history of the house, the disappearances, and it sets up a lot of what aims to happen through to the rest of the cast as you learn about the history of the house. I mean, the story of it gives you a sense of foreboding and really basically tells you that this house is the house of all houses. That like it's not something to fuck with, So,
Fabulous.
but I guess if I had to choose one particular scene, I love the moment when Emery's mother comes out of the mirror and like downgrades him for some of the shit that she's been uh, hearing in his room, and how he's been playing with his self, but yeah, I enjoy the entirety of it. all of it put together. So it is a unique experience of the psychic side of things. So, but anyways, I think that's pretty much it. Anyone else have anything else to add?
Well, I hope all of you guys enjoyed rewatching it or
Yeah.
watching it for the first time. So I hope you enjoyed my pick.
Good times.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed revisiting it, and I'm sure Brandon enjoyed finally getting to talk about it on on our channel.
I brought it up a couple times, and I was always told it's too long.
Well, thank you, Brandon. I already knew that you had brought it up a few times in the past and you liked it. So thank you very much for allowing it to be on. I don't think we did too bad with the time tonight, so it worked out good.
Oh yeah, and we got 2 more to go. Once we get past these last 2 weeks,
Mhm.
that'll be the end of our 5-year celebration. So we got some fun left. So outros, I guess.
Yes. Kroll, you want to start us out?
Sure. I'm Krolik here, Ron. I enjoy movies and TV shows and playing video games, reading, and of course coming on these podcasts to talk about the movies. Come on this podcast, coming on Sunday with Dave and Tammy on Delusions of Grandeur, and the anime discussion once a month, and joined Mo with Slock Rock this past Saturday. That was fun. So I'm around here and there doing podcasts. So I don't have my own YouTube, but you can find me on others doing that, and some pickups with Dave as well. So I'm around. How about you, Forrest?
All right, my name is Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent film producer and actor based in Long Island, New York. I just had a movie come out last month, Amityville Thanksgiving. That was my first feature film as an actor. I've got another one coming out this month, Silent Night, Bloody Night 3, and then I just recently worked on. Have a few other projects coming out soon. You can also find me on Instagram under my name is not Gump, where I do comic book pickups, or YouTube, Forrest B. Bennett. And I've always got something going on. I've always got something going on in the pipeline.
Alrighty, how about you, Jake?
Okay. Kotobukijake. I'm the co-host of the YouTube channel SeptumSin versus World, where we talk about all kinds of physical media and different this, that, and the other. We did a discussion recently on anime Escaflowne. We've do some pickups and whatnot. And meanwhile, I also keep very busy with various various work related things. I co-founded Native Plant Nursery, RVA Homegrown Natives. I try to do some writing on the side and do occasionally have some work in I got a couple of movies that I did some Kickstarter contributions that have come out recently, so that's pretty fun. I do try to make some time to get some viewing done to join these folks for their weekly discussions, and it's always fun to check out, see what new thing we have to look at each week.
Alrighty, heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I go on this one and another one with David, my fiance, and we talk. I talk with everybody on both channels about different movies, get their opinions, their likes, dislikes, and I find out some movies I like and some that I really didn't like. But I collect myself. I have a nice collection of movies and of music, so I just and now that it's this time of year, and I don't get to take out my car, but you'll know more about her when the weather gets nice.
Alrighty, heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm SeptumSin, a SeptumSin versus the world. We love our physical media here. And of course, we're taking a bit of a slowdown towards the end of the year, but I have a bunch of first impression videos that are there. But after the first of the year, we got a lot of big projects coming up. So we've got some fun in store, to be sure. But of course, I'm also on another discussion group called Schlockaholics, which Forrest also is involved in. It's like we're all involved in it, but in different ways. But with my portion,
I've been on it myself.
But with my portion of the group, we every other week, me, Mo, and Cody talk about a schlock film. And this, of course, is our Christmas schlock month. So we've already talked about Santa with Muscles, if you want to look at that. We talked about the Bad Ben Christmas special. And this Saturday, we're going to be going on about the Xmas movies, those two. So it's going to be a lot of fun as we go.
Alrighty. And my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey that we've been going on here, continuing to celebrate the 5 years that we've been on. And thank you, Tammy, for bringing this mini-series movie to our to the front of the table for us to discuss. I hope y'all have enjoyed hearing us discuss it. So, but I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we also discuss various films of different nature. And I believe this coming Sunday, we're going to be talking about Krampus on that channel. So, Mike Flanagan, Tammy and I have actually been watching a few of Mike Flanagan's work, so it'll be interesting discussion since we'll have viewed some of his recent work since this movie came out in 2015. So, and these are two like recent ones. So, but I also do some video pickups and some video reviews on said channel. So definitely like, share, and subscribe on Inside Movies Galore and Delusions of Grandeur. And I'm also putting together an anthology that I just got news that the trailer is actually going to be the first on Doomsday Stories. I guess we're one of the 5 that made it. So, because originally Doomsday Stories was supposed to grab like 10 trailers, and because everybody like sent in like more than like a minute's worth of like trailers, they were like, well, yeah, since nobody like adhered to our minute thing, 5 of you have to go. So, but we're one of the 5, so kudos for us. So, still got a lot of work with the anthology because I got some short films to eventually film, but working on getting the horror segments filmed first and then moving on forwards with that. So, but I'm almost done with the prelude and the first horror film segment, so it's exciting. But in any case, we'll be back next week with what's the next one we're going to be covering?
Black
Brandon?
Christmas, 1974.
Yes,
There you
we'll
go.
be recovering Black Christmas because most of us are who were on discussing it. I think are no longer here. So I'm pretty much the only one who was on the original discussion.
And for
No,
me, it's,
Brandon and I were.
and
Yeah,
for me,
that's
it's
right.
one of my
Brandon,
must watches every holiday season.
I was gonna say 4 of us were on it, really.
Yeah, 4 of us were, but we have
Others in the group.
kind of a different group now than we did then. So that is why I was pretty much okay with recovering it. So
We got to cover the remake one of these days, Black Xmas.
I agree. And that can definitely be something that we can cover in the near time future. So
I'll pick that next Christmas, okay?
You keep going until we get to that other remake and that other one.
Oh, you mean the unmentionable remake?
It wasn't that bad, but so long as you know what you're in for when you go into it.
Alrighty. So everyone say good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.